Hey everyone, welcome back to the I Believe podcast. I'm Megan and I am here with Frank King, the mental health comedian. Welcome,
Welcome to
Frank.
you. We should let them know that I'm not here voluntarily, that it's all part of a plea bargain arrangement. We should probably tell them.
Oh, do tell.
Yeah. I've got an ankle bracelet. I can't go far. So,
Well, we're thrilled about that and we're so happy to have you. So, tell us a little bit about your backstory. You used to write for Jay Leno. You've been on the road for, tell me how many days again? I already forgot how many days.
mid 80s to mid 90s, my lovely wife and I were on the road. She just came along for the ride doing comedy clubs for 2,629 nights in a row.
Oh my gosh. Okay, so back us up into where did you come from? How did you get into this? Like, give us the backstory.
Well, fourth grade, 9 years old, told a joke. Kids laughed. Teacher was hysterical. She was so hysterical, she had to excuse herself to go to the teacher's lounge. And I thought, I'm going to be a comedian. And 12th grade, they always had a talent show second semester, the spring semester. Nobody had ever done stand up. So I thought, well, I'll do stand up. Because I'd been in drama for 3 years, never got a speaking part. And I thought, you know what? If I do stand up, I can write, direct, produce, and star in my own show every night. So I did stand up and I won. Of course, I beat the accordion player and the folk dancers. No big victory, but still a victory. Said to my mom, I'm going to LA to be a comedian. She goes, no, 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 you're going to college first. She was big on education. I don't care what you do when you get done, son. You can be a goat herder for all I care. But you're going to be a goat herder with a college degree. So I went to UNC Chapel Hill, got a couple of college degrees and bolted for the West Coast. April 1st, April Fool's Day, not by accident. First open mic night. Halfway through my 5 minutes, I heard a voice inside my head that said, "You're home." Really?
That's
18 months
awesome.
later, I said to myself, I'm gonna do it for a living. 18 months later, I said to my girlfriend at the time, my wife now of 38 years, I'm going on the road to be a stand-up comic. You want to come along with a ride? Figuring she'd go, oh hell no. She goes, yeah. So we gave up the apartment and our jobs and jumped into my teeny little Dodge Colt. And we were on the road 2,629 nights and worked with, opened for, shared the stage with Seinfeld, Jeff Foxworthy, Ellen, Rosie, Steve Harvey, opened up for Randy Travis, the Beach Boys, the Fifth Dimension, Neil Sedaka. It was a great Lou Rawls, two shows, Hotel Del in San Diego, New Year's Eve. You'll never find another love like mine. So it was an adventure, which I wouldn't trade. And then I did some radio, about 18 months. Two kinds of people in radio, Megan: people who've been fired, people that are going to be fired. And sure enough, and so the road was sort of disappearing at that point. But my act was clean. So I thought, I'll do corporate comedy after dinner, after lunch. So I did that for about 10 years. Then the recession hit in the 08, 09, 010, 010, 8, 9, 10. And we lost everything in a Chapter 7 bankruptcy. And that's when I learned what the barrel of my gun tasted like. Spoiler alert, I did not pull the trigger. A friend of mine came up after a keynote last year. He'd never heard me say that. I didn't pull the trigger. He goes, hey, man, how come you didn't pull the trigger? I go, hey, man, could you try to sound slightly less disappointed? So
Yeah.
when speaking came back, corporate comedy came back, the meeting planner, speaker bureau said to me, we love you, Frank. We can't pay you $5,000 anymore just to be funny. You got to teach them something. I'd always wanted to do that, just had no idea what. So a friend of mine wrote a book. Her name is Judy Carter, Carter. She wrote a book called The Message of You: Turn Your Life into a Money-Making Speaking Career. She gave me a
Oh.
copy. She said, Frank, read it. You'll figure it out. I went into it thinking I got nothing. Halfway through, I thought, wait a minute. Depression, suicide run in my family. My grandmother, my great aunt, my mother, me. I have two mental illnesses and near suicide. And I thought, and more nuts in my family than in a squirrel turd. And I thought I could speak on suicide prevention if I got some training, certifications, which I did. And then my next thought was, well, yeah, but who's going to take me seriously after 2.5 decades of comedy? So my wife suggested do a TEDx. And I said, what's a TEDx? And I just happened to get an application that week from one in Canada. I sent it in, I got it, did my first TEDx. Two more called and said, do you have any more mental health topics? Yes, I just did my 13th last April and booked my 14th. All have some element of
Wow.
mental health, mental illness, suicide prevention in them. And so I've been speaking on suicide prevention since, I guess, 2012. And I also coach speakers on how to make money speaking, how to land a TEDx, since I've got 13 of them. And so that's my two businesses, I guess, speaking and then speaker coaching.
That's amazing. Like, what a story. And it's incredible that you're able to take something like mental illness that is so serious, and a lot of people are afraid to talk about it.
Oh, yes.
And you're able to bring humor into it. What's that like, and what do the audiences respond when they hear you? Are they at first a little bit like, "Ooh, where's he going with this?" Or what's it like?
Well, it's the thing that generally gets me booked over, say, a clinician, is the fact that I can lighten it up a little bit. They call it comic relief for a reason. And I don't tell jokes. I have funny personal anecdotes, like the one, spoiler alert, I didn't pull the trigger. And there's a nervous laugh generally, and I go, look, it's okay to laugh. That was the point. And then I tell the story about the guy who came up after my speech. Hey, how come you didn't pull the trigger? Bigger laugh. So it makes the material a lot easier to digest and more memorable, I guess. And I believe, and Brene Brown said it, that being vulnerable on stage is a superpower. So I'm up there talking about my mental illness, near suicide. As a man, men don't generally talk about those things. So that gives the audience permission to give voice to their feelings and experiences. And at the end, I say we're going to do some general Q&A. And then if you got a question you want to ask or a story you want to tell and you don't want to do it in front of everybody, I'll hang out an extra 30, 45 minutes, take them individually. And there's always a line. Sometimes 2 people, sometimes 10, but always a line. And most of their, what they got to say starts with, I've never told anybody this. Yeah, I get that a lot because, people don't talk about it. In my first TEDx talk, I said, or as I was preparing for the first TEDx, I realized, even though one person at the time died by suicide every 11 minutes in the U.S., hardly anybody talked about it unless you brought it up, and then almost everybody has a story of some kind. So that's my job really, is to go in and start the conversation on suicide, because once you start it, then people feel comfortable sharing, talking about it.
Yeah. And I mean, that's such an important first step, because once you talk about it, then you can normalize it, you can get help for the people that need it. Do you find that conversation has led people to come back to you and say, this is how this affected me? Like, do you hear the stories in the end?
Sometimes I have 2 mental health issues. One is general major depressive disorder, relatively common. Depression, kind of garden variety. And then I have something else called chronic suicidal ideation, which is rare. Chronic suicidal ideation means, for me and people in my tribe, the option of suicide is always on the menu as a solution for problems large and small. And so I tell the audience, when I say small, my car broke down a couple of years ago. I had 3 thoughts unbidden. 1, get it fixed. 2, buy a new one. 3, hell, I could just kill myself. Almost every time I speak, there's somebody in the audience who has that. They don't know it has a name. They think they're just a freak and completely alone. I had a dentist. I was at a dental convention. I spoke. And as everybody's leaving the room, pretty much everybody, there's a woman walking toward me, a dentist, and she's crying. And she gets up to me. She's crying so hard she cannot speak. So I said, you have chronic suicidal ideation. She nods, yes. You didn't know it had a name. You just thought you're some kind of freak. Nod. I said, do you have a therapist back home? Nod. Yes. I said, well, do me a favor. When you get back home, set an appointment. Tell the therapist everything you learned today. And for God's sakes, tell him you Googled it. Don't tell him you learned it from a comedian. And a week later, I got an email. Frank, I think I was at that convention in large part simply to meet you. You've changed my life, and I cannot say that about a lot of people. So occasionally, somebody will write and say, I did something did 2 or 3 shows on a military base, Fort Irwin in California. It's a National Army Training Center. They had done an anonymous survey the year before asking about thoughts of suicide. And 30% of the people on base admitted anonymously they had thoughts of suicide. 30%. So they brought me in and they had me do a couple of keynotes. And I love working military bases because it was in like a gymnasium. And nobody was sitting down front. Well, these people in the military. So I said to the guy running they're in the military. Order them to fill in up front. So, they weren't. And near the end of the last keynote, the young man asked me, do you think the Army's doing enough for mental health. I said, well, I can't speak for the Army, certainly, but can speak for Fort Irwin, otherwise I wouldn't be here. And I didn't know it, but the general, the one star who ran the base, had walked up behind me, standing behind me holding a microphone. I didn't know he was there. I said, soldier, I'm here because Fort Irwin gives a shit. I turned, I see the star in the middle of his chest, because that's where they put the star nowadays, so you can't identify him from a distance and shoot him. And I turned back to the audience and said, anybody besides me poop your pants at that moment? And the general stepped up and said into the microphone, soldiers, Frank King is correct. Fort Irwin gives a shit. Oh,
Aw, that's so sweet.
yeah. Well, it comes from the top. So
Yep.
a couple of months later, I got a DM on LinkedIn from the base psychologist that I'd met. I did his podcast. And he said, Frank, I had a soldier walk into my office this morning and flat out told me I'm depressed and suicidal, and I'm here because Frank King said I had to tell somebody.
Oh, that's amazing.
Yes, I don't hear often, but every now and then.
That's very cool.
Castle Biosciences is a proud sponsor of this I Believe podcast. Castle's innovative uveal melanoma tests provide valuable information about the risk of your eye cancer spreading to help you and your healthcare team individualize the management of your disease. To learn more, visit castlebiosciences.com.
Frank, one of the things that you also talk about is recognizing the signs and symptoms of somebody who might be having depression or suicidal behavior. If people are listening, what are those signs that they can look for that they maybe could intervene and help somebody or notice it in themselves?
Good question, and I get asked often. How do I know somebody is depressed? Well, I've got three things, not an exhaustive list, but my top three. One is actually two parts. They either eat too much or can't eat, sleep too much or can't sleep. Second one is they have trouble getting out of bed in the morning, so they're often late for work or school, but rally in the afternoon like an entirely different person. Third one is something you can observe visually. Normally they're pretty well put together, but the last couple of weeks, clothes are kind of dirty, hair's not quite so clean. It may be because they're having trouble getting out of bed in the morning to run a little wash and take a shower. So the question comes up, what do I say to somebody who is either told me they're depressed or I think they're depressed? Here's what you don't say. Pull yourself up by your bootstraps. Turn that frown upside down. My personal favorite, have you tried fish oil? Yeah. At which point I go from suicidal to homicidal. What you do say is, look, I'm here for you and I mean it. I know you're not lazy, crazy, or self-absorbed. I know that depression is a mental illness. Here's the good news. With time and treatment, things will get better. I'll take the time. I'll help you get the treatment. Now, here's the really hard part. You have to ask them in no uncertain terms, are you having thoughts of suicide? Just like that. And I tell the audience, look, if you can't ask that question, find somebody who can. And if you can't find anybody, call me, I'll ask them.
Oh,
There's an old urban legend that you should never mention the S word, suicide, in front of somebody who's depressed because it'll make them more likely. When in fact the reverse is true. Mentioning it out loud makes them less likely to die by suicide. So let's say you suspect they're suicidal, but they don't admit it. How would you know? Well, they talk about death and dying a lot. Catch them Googling death, dying, or how to die by suicide. They're accumulating the means, either buying a firearm or stockpiling medication. They are getting their affairs in order, especially if they're giving away prized possessions, because they want to make sure the possessions go to the people they want them to go to when they're gone. And here's one that's counterintuitive but very dangerous. They've been depressed forever, and now they're happy for really no apparent reason. But you're happy because, hey, they're happy. The problem is they may be happy because they've chosen time, place, and method, and they know the pain is about to come to an end. Because what a lot of people don't realize is suicide, many people, many who died by suicide didn't want to kill themselves. They simply wanted to end the pain. So now, let's say they admit they're having thoughts of suicide. What do you say? You say, do you have a plan? If they say yes, what is your plan? If it's detailed, time, place, and method, you need to do your best to get them to a mental health facility simply for evaluation. Or at the very least, on the phone or texting to 988, the Suicide Prevention Lifeline. Now, here's something I've never seen, read, heard in a class I took. What if they got a plan, but it's not real detailed? It's kind of, nebulous. Well, what I would say is, okay, tell me, you going to kill yourself? If they said no, I would say, all right, tell me why not. make them give voice to whatever's keeping them here, because something is keeping them here, or you wouldn't be having this conversation.
I bet that catches them by surprise too, because you don't expect someone to say, "Tell me now why not." You expect them to give you all the reasons why you should stay.
Yes.
So that I think that would kind of stop them in their tracks a little and make them like, "What?"
That's the idea, because other people are saying you got so much to live for, which, by the way, doesn't make any difference.
Yeah.
And if you have children, by the way, because people ask me occasionally, my son is depressed and suicidal. I go, here's the deal. You need to join the conversation he's having in his head. And here's what it sounds like. You don't say you got so much to live for. Say to him, look, I know it's crossed your mind that your mom and I would be better off without you. Something called burdensomeness. The world would be better off without me. Crossed your mind, mom and I would be better off without you. In no uncertain terms would we ever be better off without you. And it may have crossed your mind that you're a burden. But in no uncertain terms, are you a burden to your mom and me? Because that's the conversation they're having in their head. And I spoke in Vegas at a convention of speakers. And somehow I drifted into my suicide prevention. I was talking about how to land and leverage a TEDx. But all of mine are on mental health, so I sort of lapsed into my suicide prevention, mental health comedian thing. And a guy came up to me after the presentation, and he mentioned his son and thoughts of suicide depression. So I told him I just told you. And I guess a year later, I was on a panel on Zoom with the gentleman who threw that conference. He was coming on after so he was, kind of in the chute. So we're all sitting both on the screen together. And he goes, Frank, don't go anywhere yet. I got to tell you, do you remember that nice young man that you spoke to whose son was depressed and suicidal? He said, I had a conversation with him yesterday, and he said, I think Frank King may have saved my son's life. So again, that's the benefit of starting the conversation.
Oh, that's amazing. Well, I'm so glad that you're doing this work and that you're doing it in a way that it's approachable for people. I think that's so important because people don't want to go listen to a seminar where they feel like they're going to be lectured or it's going to be creepy or it's going to be dry. And so to be able to bring humor into it and be an engaging speaker, which you are, that people actually want to listen to. I mean, I think this is definitely your calling, and I'm so happy that you found it.
Yeah, I feel sort of like George Bailey in It's a Wonderful Life, that movie.
Yes.
Because of the people who come up afterwards. I feel like, if I weren't there simply to tell my story and hear theirs, that, if I killed myself and they never had a chance to hear me or share their story, I in theory, could take them with me when I went. So I'm afraid I'm stuck.
I'm glad you're stuck. Thank you for being stuck with us.
My pleasure.
Thank you for all you're doing. This is really, really wonderful. And it's January. So it's, mental health focus in January is huge. I think the holidays are just hard for a lot of people for a lot of different reasons. And then going into January, we're coming out of it. It's winter. It's gray. Do you feel like it picks up this time of year?
No, actually, it's
Oh, really?
People think, well, I mean, if you're depressed, and you're going into the holidays, there are some risks involved, but the suicide rate is not necessarily higher over the holidays than it is. I think suicide rate is the highest in April for some strange reason.
Interesting.
I know, I have no idea why, but there are additional pressures. If you're depressed, the holidays, it's the happiest time of the year. You're expected to be happy. You're with friends, you're with family. It's the happiest time of the year. Joy to the world. So there's a lot of pressure to be happy, and to also to meet with, and dine with, eat with, open presents with family. And so my advice is often, look, if all that's going to stress you out, you have the right to say, look, I'll come see you another time this coming year. It's just not a good time for me to be, because there's a lot of family dynamics. There's a lot of arguing that goes on at the dinner table, Christmas and Thanksgiving. Your wacky uncle who all of a sudden launches into something. So
it's a big stressor for a lot of people.
Yeah, so if it's gonna be that stressful, just say, look, I'd love to spend time with you guys, but I'll come sometime early next year. And then there's seasonal affective disorder. Some people are affected by the short days, the clouds, the rain. I actually, having lived in Southern California off and on for 11 years, The sun depresses me. I have reverse seasonal reverse seasonal affective disorder because I love short days, rain, cold, wet. And here's the thing: in Oregon where we live, sun comes up around 8 in the morning, goes down at 4 in the afternoon. And if you're somebody who lives with depression and the sun goes down at 4, it's socially acceptable to go to bed when it's dark. So at 4:30, well, it's dark. I'm going to go back to bed. I'm going to lie in there and watch the next season of the Snowpiercer or whatever I'm watching on Prime.
Yep. It's funny you say that because I'm from Phoenix originally, and I lived in Southern California for a few years too. And when you are in that constant state of sunshine, you cherish clouds. And rain is just like the biggest blessing. Like a rainy day, like you cancel all your plans, you stay home and like watch it out the window, and it's just like you treasure it. So I completely understand what you're saying.
Yeah, so it's and well in Oregon, we live in Oregon, and my wife in the house my wife grew up in, and the climate has
That's
changed.
cool.
We can argue about the reasons, but the climate has changed. My wife would tell you that when she was a kid here in Oregon, back in the 60s and 70s, that summer was a week in July. And now it goes from Memorial Day way past Labor Day, and now we have wildfires like they have in California.
Yikes.
Yep. So we hold our breath from the middle of August to the middle of September. We were evacuated a few years ago for 2 weeks, and the fire came within a quarter mile of the house.
Oh my
And
goodness.
so our philosophy is if it's raining, it can't burn.
Smart.
Yeah.
Smart. Well,
So we
we'll
love
welcome the rain.
we love the middle of September till Memorial Day because it's nothing's going to catch fire.
Oh my goodness, that would be so scary.
TEDx, the theme was climate change and environmentalism. And she asked me to do it, and I said, well, let me see if I can find a connection to mental health. Well, turns out there's a connection there to mental health in that people who have, well, we having been evacuated 2 weeks, we are climate change refugees. We've been forced from our homes because of the effects of climate change, the fires. And so there are people all over the country who've been forced from their homes, flood, fire, hurricanes, whatever. And there's an anticipatory anxiety. It's echo anxiety that you're worried that something's going to catch fire or the next hurricane's coming through and if you already have a mental illness, it just makes it worse. Having that extra anxiety about the weather and fires and hurricanes and tornadoes and floods and so forth.
Yeah. Oh, absolutely. And, for us, our base is mostly cancer patients or family and caretakers of cancer patients. So we also have that element coming in. They're constantly getting scans and worry and stress. And so, similar to environmental, but this is, medical. But I feel like probably somewhere in the same realm of that, anticipating what's going to happen and the fear and the even anticipatory grief of what's coming.
And caregivers, I think I've had several
Yes.
open heart surgeries, and all congenital, all runs in my family. My dad had a bad heart valve. I got it. My mom had the cholesterol of a deep fat fryer, and the mental illness. So my wife, when I was having heart surgery, obviously she's the caretaker at that point. And I realized how much harder it is on the caretaker than it is on the person in the hospital because in the hospital I have a whole team of folks around the clock. Wow. But as a caregiver, she's sitting at home worried and wondering, and I've got several of my coaching clients, speaker coaching clients, speak about caregiving and how hard it is on the people who are giving the care. And as a matter of fact, I always tell my students, look, a great way to start a speech or a TEDx talk is with a startling statistic. So one of her statistics is that 70% of people over 70 who are in the role of a caregiver die before the person for whom they are giving care.
Wow.
Yep.
That is shocking.
And I imagine the
Wow.
suicide rate's higher too.
Yeah, I mean it's a lot of stress, a lot of anxiety, a lot of pressure, a lot of am I doing this right? Am I doing this enough? And then, you're putting yourself on the back burner. You're not doing the self-care and things that you need to do. So I mean, I think there's multiple facets of why that would be.
She says her thing is that she says your heart tells you you should be doing this, but you need to take that into consideration but you need to run that operation like a CEO, a manager, or a CEO. It needs to be run not like a business, but you can't just be all heart. It's got to be some head, and you need to ask for help, and you need to set limits, and so you need to run like a manager more than just a relative, a loved one.
That makes sense.
Aura Biosciences is a clinical stage biotechnology company focused on developing precision therapies for solid tumors that aim to preserve organ function. Our lead candidate, Belsar, is currently in late stage development for primary choroidal melanoma and in early stage development in other ocular oncology indications and bladder cancer. Our mission is to grow as an innovative global oncology company that positively transforms the lives of patients. For more information, please visit us at aurabiosciences.com.
You've done a lot of the TEDx talks.
Yeah.
What is like one message that you wish every organization would take away? What's like the one nugget that you want them all to have?
My nugget is that you don't have to be a clinician to stop suicide. Anybody can. You can make a difference. You can save a life. You can do it by doing something as simple as we're doing right here, and that is having a conversation if you know how. And we just taught everybody listening how.
That's fantastic. I love that. Yes. And if you're listening, like Frank said, reach out to somebody. You can email us, you can email Frank, you can email, what was the hotline that you mentioned before?
988 is and they'd much rather hear from you before you're standing on the ledge. I mean, if you're circling if you're sort of spiraling downward, call them before you end up on the ledge and about to jump.
Definitely. And we would all love to be there for you, or if you need help with someone else, yeah, make the call for sure. Reach out. So for listeners who are fighting their own mental health battle right now, any other parting words that you would say to them?
Yes, actually to their families. There's an organization called NAMI, National Alliance Mental Illness, NAMI, NAMI, or NAMI, depending on what part of the country you're in. And I was introduced to them by a friend of mine. He was in the Chamber of Commerce with me, and he has a son who's schizoaffective. And they were at their wits' end. The family was crumbling. The marriage was, and NAMI has a 12-week program once a week in the evening for people who have someone who has schizoaffective disorder in their family, or depression, or bipolar disorder. So that saved the family, saved the marriage. You talk about what to say, what not to say, what to do, what not to do. So NAMI has these classes in addition to family peer counseling. So you take counseling with other families so you know you're not alone in the neighborhood with this problem. And they have peer-to-peer counseling for the person who has the issue. And the best thing about NAMI is, National Alliance Mental Illness, everything they do is free.
Wow.
And there's a chapter in pretty much every county in the country. So look up NAMI, National Alliance Mental Illness, whatever county you're in, and you'll probably find one either in that county or nearby.
That's amazing. That's a huge resource for sure. All right. So looking ahead, Frank, what is next for the mental health comedian? What do you got cooking?
Lunch? Oh, I'm sorry. Let's see. Well, number 14, TEDx is fall of 26, fall this year. Trying to think if there's anything else exciting. Well, I did my 7th bodybuilding contest in September. I'll be doing my 8th this coming September.
Wow. That's amazing.
They have a master's category, over 60. And I always wanted to do that when I was a kid. I bought the comic book with the Charles Atlas program in the back, and the guy kicked sand in the face. But I'm fine boned. I'm sure the results of a lot of Southern inbreeding in my family, and so I thought there's just no way. And then in the last 10 years or so, there are several federations that are what they call true natural bodybuilding. They don't just ask you if you've been doing a performance enhancing substance. Before the contest, the night before the contest, they polygraph you before the contest.
Wow.
And they urine test you after. So you cannot be doing, so at least I've gotten a 2nd, a 3rd, a 4th, and a 5th so far. My goal is actually to get a 1st in over 40 and get a pro card.
Wow.
I did a natural contest for my first one where they just asked, have you been doing steroids? And I mean, there were some huge human beings. There's a woman standing next to me. She has an Adam's apple the size of a Golden Delicious. That can't be natural.
No.
So yeah, so I'm in the bulking up phase of I bulk up to the middle of May, and then I'll start cutting for the 5 months prior to the contest, cutting my calories as I approach the contest.
Very cool. I love that. I think that's awesome. And it's great to go after something you've always wanted to do, and I love that you're focusing on so much positivity and going after what you want. And, I mean, that's the goal for January, right? Let's all focus on the good things and what we want to do and get all our ducks in a row. So
Yes, and if I had a piece
it's
of
impressive.
advice, would be that create a self-care plan. I have a self-care plan, whether you're neurotypical or neurodiverse, because with the pandemic, I had a lot of friends who'd never been depressed before. Actually, were depressed, although they had no idea because they'd never been depressed before. They just didn't. They knew it didn't feel right. They would call me and tell me their symptoms. Well, dude, guess what? Welcome to the club. So
Yeah, because it's not one of those things you just know you are. Sometimes, you just don't know what's up, and then someone tells you, and you're like, "Oh, really?"
Oh, yes.
Yeah.
I said, go see somebody, get an evaluation, and find out if if it's just garden variety depression. If they suggest some medication, it's not a life sentence. Just take it until the sun comes back up, and then you taper off. So my self-care plan, this is what I teach. When you do a speech, you have learning objectives. Teach them how to spot the signs and symptoms. And then you need to give them a takeaway, an action item. My action item is everybody needs a self-care plan. Mine is diet. I'm on the keto diet and occasionally I intermittent fast. Exercise. Exercise every 6 days a week. I got this Apple Fitness app, and there's this unending, the upper body, lower body, core, and so it's a lot of fun. And I got during the pandemic, we collected weights, and I've got an exercise bike and a treadmill because you couldn't go anywhere. So six
Yes.
days a week. So diet, exercise, good night's sleep. People discount a good night's sleep.
Yeah.
People give me a hard time because I'm in bed by between 6 and 6:30 in the evening. I'm up by 1. And they go, why? I go, those are my
One.
yes, those are my circadian rhythm. That's my rhythm. And my eyes pop open at 1 o'clock. For years, I fought it because I'm a comic. How can I be a morning person? I mean, a radical morning person if I'm a comic. Finally gave in. I just went to bed and my body said, night night. So, and it works. So whatever your circadian rhythm, you hear people say, I can get by on 3 hours sleep. Oh, dear God. It's just not good for you. So
No.
diet, exercise, good night's sleep, meditation, twice a day at least. After a meal, I have this thing called the cat napper. It's an MP3 that's guided meditation, takes you down, and then at the end brings you back up. You'll awake refreshed in 30 minutes. And when the guy starts, I've been doing it so long, when the guy starts talking, I'll,
Yeah.
yeah, I'm a great
You
subject.
know, they have
Go ahead.
they have so many studies about what meditation does for your brain long term. Like it's shocking. It's amazing.
It's like back in the day, back in the 90s with computers. Do you remember this? You'd call up tech support and they'd go, have you unplugged it yet? So you're sort of unplugging yourself and plugging yourself back in. Lowers your blood pressure, lowers cortisol rates, raises DHEA, oxytocin.
Yes.
Yeah,
It
so
does a
diet,
lot.
exercise, good night's sleep, meditation, and medication. I take some medication. Not a large dose. It was the first thing my doc suggested. Now, here's the thing. If you're taking the medication, it's not working. Used to, it was just, okay, you had to taper off, try something else. Taper off, try something else. Nowadays, they've got a DNA cheek swab test, a couple $100.
Oh.
They take your DNA on that Q-tip, and they try to match you with a drug that matches your metabolism. So it shrinks the list of possible candidates generally to 2 or 3. They would work really well with your metabolism. So there's a lot less experimentation, lab rat kind of stuff. So if it hadn't worked, I would have done the cheek swab, sent it in, say, okay, now what are my choices? Yeah, so the diet, exercise, good night's sleep, meditation, medication is, I think everybody should have and here's the thing, and I learned this from one of my clients who lives with schizoaffective disorder. He says, Frank, yeah, 5 things, great. You need a non-negotiable. One thing you do every day, whether you do anything else or not. His is journaling. No matter what he does that day, if he does 0 else, he journals. So mine is working out. If I do nothing, get out of bed, work out, go back to bed, fine. So you have to have, I believe, should have one non-negotiable that you're going to do, every day.
I love that. This has been so educational and helpful and honestly eye-opening. Are there any other things that we haven't hit that you would like to talk about before we close out?
Let's see. No, but I can close it out for you like a comedian would. You ready?
Please do. Yes, I would love that.
Alrighty. If you enjoyed this podcast, please rate, review, and subscribe and tell your friends. If you did not enjoy this podcast, well, we hope you have no friends.
Fantastic. Thank you, Frank.
You're welcome.
And I will add, we're so thankful for Frank being here and just giving us all of this wisdom and just sharing your time with us. We're truly grateful. And to all of our viewers, thank you for watching. We obviously would not have a podcast without you, whether you're watching on YouTube or listening on our other platforms. Thank you. Please subscribe. Please leave us a comment. And a huge, huge thank you to our sponsors. None of this happens without our sponsors. So please check out their websites. They're doing amazing things right now. And then a little housekeeping. We have big things coming up. We have the 5Ks for the year. Please go to our website, acurensight.org. Check out what 5Ks are coming up around you. See if there's any you can make. Steps for Sight is going right now. If you have not signed up for Steps for Sight, please do go to our website, acurensight.org. You can find it there. You can find it on our social media, but it's actually going to be a Charity Footprints app. You can download the app, and that's what it will function through. You can start a team, you can join a team that's already starting, you can do it individually, but it's basically, we're taking 7,000 steps every day for the 7,000 people diagnosed with ocular melanoma each year. So if you can join us, please do. If you can't walk, you have mobility issues, that's okay. There's other things on the list you can do to earn points. Things like reading a book or doing some cooking, different things that are, things we feel that are health and wellnessy. So please join Steps for Sight. Join us through January. Invite your friends and family. It's not too late to join. So even if it's the last day of January, we'd rather have you with us one day than no days. So please join us. And then Swing for Sight is coming up in the spring. Stay tuned for all the information and dates about Swing for Sight. That's a charity golf tournament in Napa. Yeah, and it's so much fun. That one is a blast. We do a charity golf tournament, and at the same time, we do a wine tour where we take you on a bus to wineries in Napa. So you can choose if you want to golf or if you want a wine tour. So that's a ton of fun. So watch for that. And then Hill Day, Rare Disease Week is coming up the end of February. So watch for that on our socials as well. We're going to Capitol Hill to advocate for rare disease funding. So if you would like to join us either virtually or in person, we will be there. We would love to have you join us. And yeah, we've got a lot of exciting things coming up. So follow the socials, check out the sponsors, and we hope that we see you guys next week. So thank you for tuning in.